O.J. Simpson, June 12, 1994. Two people were brutally stabbed to death outside a home in Los Angeles. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were found dead in pools of blood. Within days, the prime suspect was Nicole's ex-husband, former NFL superstar O.J. Simpson. On June 17th, instead of surrendering to police, Simpson led authorities on a 90-minute low-speed chase through Southern California in a white Ford Bronco. 95 million people watched it live on television, making it the most-watched police chase in American history. The LAPD led the investigation, while the FBI provided laboratory support, examining evidence including shoe prints, fibers, blood samples, and hair. FBI experts traveled to Italy to study rare Bruno Magli shoes. Simpson was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. The trial lasted 8 months and received unprecedented worldwide coverage. On October 3, 1995, the jury acquitted him. But the story didn't end there. In 1997, a civil jury found Simpson liable for the deaths after photographs surfaced showing Simpson wearing Bruno Magli shoes before the murders. He was ordered to pay $33.5 million. In 2008, Simpson was convicted of armed robbery in Las Vegas and served 9 years in prison. He died in 2024 at age 76, his legacy forever tied to murder rather than football greatness. Aaron Hernandez, June 17, 2013. Semi-professional football player Odin Lloyd was found shot to death in an industrial park in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. Within days, police identified the suspect, Aaron Hernandez, tight end for the New England Patriots. On June 18th, police searched Hernandez's mansion for hours, looking for weapons and evidence. Security footage showed Hernandez with Lloyd hours before the killing. On June 26th, police arrested Hernandez at his home and charged him with first-degree murder. The Patriots released him 90 minutes later, terminating his $40 million contract. The FBI assisted in analyzing evidence including weapons, cell phones, and surveillance footage. Prosecutors found bubblegum Hernandez purchased stuck to a shell casing at the scene with his DNA on it. In 2015, Hernandez was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. While awaiting trial for a separate double murder, he was acquitted in 2017. 5 days later, on April 19, 2017, Hernandez was found dead in his cell, having hanged himself with a bedsheet. He was 27. His autopsy revealed severe brain damage from CTE, but the darkest secrets came out after his death. Ray Lewis, January 31, 2000. 2 men were stabbed to death outside a nightclub in Atlanta following a Super Bowl party. Jason Baker and Richard Lawler were killed after an altercation. Police quickly identified suspects, including Baltimore Ravens linebacker Ray Lewis, one of the NFL's biggest stars. Lewis and 2 friends were charged with 2 counts of murder. The case drew massive media attention because Lewis was at the peak of his career and had just played in the Super Bowl. The Atlanta Police Department led the homicide investigation. During the trial, prosecutors offered Lewis a plea deal. In exchange for testifying against his 2 co-defendants, the murder charges against Lewis were dropped. He pleaded guilty to misdemeanor obstruction of justice because he admitted to giving a misleading statement to police. Lewis was sentenced to 12 months probation and fined by the NFL. His 2 friends were acquitted of murder charges. Lewis later reached confidential financial settlements with the victims' families. He went on to play 13 more seasons, won another Super Bowl, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2018. The case remains controversial to this day, with many believing Lewis knows more than he revealed. The white suit he wore that night, reportedly disposed of in a dumpster at a Food Lion grocery store, which is why it vanished so effectively. Rae Carruth, November 16, 1999. A car pulled alongside another vehicle in Charlotte, North Carolina, and opened fire. Inside the targeted car was Cherika Adams, 8 months pregnant with the child of Carolina Panthers wide receiver Rae Carruth. She was shot 4 times. Adams managed to call 911 and identify Carruth as being involved before losing consciousness. She died a month later, but doctors saved her baby through emergency cesarean section. The child, Chancellor Lee Adams, survived but suffered permanent brain damage from oxygen deprivation. Police investigation revealed Carruth had orchestrated a murder-for-hire plot to avoid paying child support. He hired Van Brett Watkins to kill Adams. The FBI assisted in tracking Carruth's movements and financial transactions related to the murder plot. Carruth fled after the shooting, prompting a massive manhunt. He was found hiding in the trunk of a car in Tennessee. In 2001, Carruth was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and sentenced to 18 to 24 years in prison. He was released in 2018 after serving 19 years. Watkins received 40 years for second-degree murder. The son Carruth tried to prevent? Raised by his grandmother and became a symbol of survival. Darren Sharper. Between 2013 and 2014, women across 4 states reported being drugged and sexually assaulted. The cases seemed unrelated at first, occurring in Nevada, California, Louisiana, and Arizona. Then investigators noticed a disturbing pattern. Many victims had encountered former NFL safety Darren Sharper. Sharper had retired in 2010 after a 14-year career that included a Super Bowl victory with the New Orleans Saints and 5 Pro Bowl selections. The FBI coordinated investigations across multiple states as evidence mounted. Victims testified that Sharper and his friends drugged them at bars and clubs, then assaulted them while they were unconscious. Investigators linked Sharper to drugging and raping at least 16 women across the 4 states, though initial reports involved 20 potential victims. In 2014, Sharper was arrested on multiple rape and drug-related charges. DNA evidence and witness testimony built an overwhelming case. In 2016, Sharper pleaded guilty to charges in all 4 states. He admitted to drugging and raping women in a multi-state crime spree. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Despite his conviction for serial rape, Sharper remains eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame under bylaws that consider only on-field contributions, though his name has never moved forward in voting. His projected release date is August 2034. He'll be 58 years old and will remain on lifetime probation. Michael Vick. April 2007. Federal agents raided a property in Surry County, Virginia during a drug investigation. What they found shocked the nation. Evidence of a large-scale dogfighting operation. The property belonged to Atlanta Falcons quarterback Michael Vick, one of the NFL's most electrifying players. The FBI and USDA investigators uncovered fighting dogs, training equipment, and remains of dogs that had been killed. Witnesses testified that Vick funded and operated Bad News Kennels, a dogfighting ring that had been running since 2001. Dogs were trained to fight to the death. Losing dogs were executed by hanging, drowning, or electrocution. In July 2007, Vick was indicted on federal felony charges related to dogfighting. Initially, he denied everything, but as evidence mounted and co-defendants testified against him, Vick pleaded guilty in August 2007. He admitted to funding the operation and participating in executing dogs. He was sentenced to 23 months in federal prison. The NFL suspended him indefinitely. Vick served 19 months and was released in 2009. He filed for bankruptcy, having lost over $100 million in earnings and endorsements. Vick later returned to the NFL, playing until 2015, but his legacy remains forever tainted. Animal rights activists still protest him today. Kellen Winslow Jr. June 14, 2018. San Diego County Sheriff's deputies arrived at a mansion in Encinitas, California, executing an arrest warrant for former NFL tight end Kellen Winslow Jr. When Winslow answered the door, deputies arrested him on charges of kidnapping and rape of a homeless woman. Bail was set at $1 million. Within days, prosecutors filed additional charges involving 4 more victims. The allegations spanned from 2003 to 2018, involving women ranging from 17 to 77 years old. Charges included rape, burglary, lewd conduct, and indecent exposure. Investigators obtained DNA evidence linking Winslow to crime scenes, cell phone records placing him near attack locations, and security footage showing his vehicle in neighborhoods where crimes occurred. The trial began in May 2019. Victims testified about their attacks in emotional detail. The jury found Winslow guilty of some charges but deadlocked on rape counts. Before retrial, Winslow accepted a plea deal in October 2019, pleading guilty to rape and other charges. On December 18, 2019, he was sentenced to 14 years in state prison and lifetime sex offender registration. In January 2025, a court denied his appeal for a sentence reduction. His earliest possible parole date remains 2027, though with recent legal setbacks, he may serve closer to his full 14-year term. His Hall of Fame father watched his son's legacy destroyed forever. Ray Rice. February 15, 2014. Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice was arrested after a physical altercation with his fiancée, Janae Palmer, at an Atlantic City casino. Initial reports were vague. and Rice entered a pretrial intervention program that would have avoided prosecution. Then in September 2014, TMZ released surveillance video from inside the casino elevator. The footage showed Rice punching Palmer in the face, knocking her unconscious, then dragging her limp body out of the elevator like garbage. The video went viral, sparking national outrage. The NFL had initially suspended Rice for just 2 games, but after the video's release, the Ravens terminated his contract and the NFL suspended him indefinitely. The case exposed the NFL's lenient handling of domestic violence and forced the league to overhaul its policies. Federal authorities examined whether the NFL had seen the full video before making their initial decision. Rice's suspension was later reduced after arbitration found the NFL had punished him twice for the same offense. However, no team signed him again. Rice never played another NFL game. The incident became a watershed moment in how professional sports leagues handle domestic violence cases. Palmer married him anyway. Lawrence Phillips. Lawrence Phillips was a troubled running back who showed flashes of brilliance but couldn't escape violence. Drafted by the St. Louis Rams in 1996, Phillips had multiple run-ins with law enforcement throughout his career. In 1996, he was accused of domestic violence against his girlfriend. In 2005, he was convicted of domestic violence against another girlfriend and sentenced to probation. But his most serious crime came in 2015. Phillips was already in prison in California for choking his girlfriend and driving his car into 3 teenagers after a pickup football game. While incarcerated at Kern Valley State Prison, Phillips got into an argument with his cellmate, Damian Soward. On April 11, 2015, Phillips killed Soward by strangling him with his bare hands. Prison investigators and local authorities examined the murder scene. Phillips was charged with first-degree murder. He faced the death penalty. Before trial on January 13, 2016, guards found Phillips dead in his cell. He had hanged himself with a bedsheet. He was 37 years old. Phillips never stood trial for the murder. His case highlighted the intersection of mental health issues, violence, and the NFL's failure to address troubled players early in their careers. How many lives could have been saved? Jovan Belcher, December 1, 2012. Kansas City Chiefs linebacker Jovan Belcher shot and killed his girlfriend, Cassandra Perkins, at their home. Their 3-month-old daughter was in the house at the time. After the murder, Belcher drove to Arrowhead Stadium, where the Chiefs' practice facility is located. He encountered Chiefs general manager Scott Pioli and head coach Romeo Crennel in the parking lot. Belcher thanked them for everything they had done for him. Then, as police arrived, Belcher walked away, put his gun to his head, and killed himself in front of coaches and officers. The murder-suicide shocked the NFL and the Kansas City community. Investigation revealed Belcher had been drinking heavily the night before and had argued with Perkins about their relationship. Toxicology reports later showed Belcher had a blood alcohol level of 0.17, more than twice the legal limit. The weapons he used were legally owned by him. A year after his death, Belcher's body was exhumed at his family's request. The autopsy revealed his brain showed signs of chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The case raised questions about CTE's role in violent behavior and the NFL's responsibility for brain injuries. The tragedy left behind an orphaned daughter and 2 devastated families. The Chiefs played their scheduled game just hours later. Henry Ruggs III. November 2, 2021, at 3:39 in the morning, a Chevrolet Corvette was speeding down a Las Vegas street at 156 miles per hour. Behind the wheel was Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver Henry Ruggs III. His blood alcohol level was 0.161, twice the legal limit. Ruggs slammed into a Toyota RAV4, causing a massive explosion. The RAV4 burst into flames with 23-year-old Tina Tintor and her dog trapped inside. Both burned to death while bystanders watched helplessly. Ruggs and his girlfriend survived with injuries. Police arrived to find the horrific scene. Ruggs showed obvious signs of impairment. He was arrested and charged with DUI, resulting in death and reckless driving. The Raiders released him immediately. Video footage and data from Ruggs's Corvette showed his excessive speed and impairment. In August 2022, prosecutors offered a plea deal. Ruggs pleaded guilty to DUI resulting in death and vehicular manslaughter. On August 3, 2023, he was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in Nevada State Prison. In Nevada, this means he must serve a minimum of 3 years before becoming eligible for parole. Based on his 2023 sentencing, he will likely have his first parole hearing in late 2026. He's currently serving his sentence at a medium-security facility. The case became a stark reminder of the deadly consequences of drunk driving. Tintor's screams were heard by witnesses. Plaxico Burress. November 29, 2008. New York Giants wide receiver Plaxico Burress went to a nightclub in Manhattan carrying an unlicensed Glock pistol tucked into his waistband. The gun wasn't properly secured. While inside the club, the weapon slipped down his leg. As Burress tried to catch it, the gun fired, shooting him in the right thigh. The bullet missed his femoral artery by inches, potentially saving his life. Burress and his teammates tried to cover up the incident, taking him to a hospital under a fake name, but police were notified anyway. New York has some of the strictest gun laws in America. Even though Burress shot himself accidentally, he was charged with criminal possession of a weapon, a felony. The case drew attention because Burress had caught the winning touchdown in Super Bowl XXIII just months earlier. Federal authorities examined whether the weapon had crossed state lines. In August 2009, Burress pleaded guilty to attempted criminal possession of a weapon. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison under New York's mandatory minimum sentencing laws. He served 20 months before being released in 2011. Burress returned to the NFL briefly, but was never the same player. His case highlighted the serious legal consequences athletes face regarding firearms. One moment of carelessness cost him millions. Steve McNair. July 4, 2009, former NFL quarterback Steve McNair was found dead in a condominium in Nashville, Tennessee. He had been shot 4 times, twice in the head and twice in the chest. Lying next to him was 20-year-old Sahel Kazemi, dead from a single gunshot wound to the head. Police investigation revealed this was a murder-suicide. Kazemi, McNair's mistress, had shot him while he slept on the couch, then turned the gun on herself. McNair was married with 4 children who had no idea about the affair. Evidence showed Kazemi had been distraught about McNair seeing other women and about her own financial problems. She had recently purchased the handgun used in the murder. In the days before the shooting, Kazemi had made statements to friends suggesting she wanted to end her life. McNair had no idea what was coming. The case shocked the NFL community. McNair had retired in 2007 after a 13-year career that included 3 Pro Bowl selections and co-MVP honors in 2003. Federal authorities assisted local police given McNair's high profile. The investigation concluded Kazemi acted alone with no accomplices or conspiracy. The murder-suicide devastated McNair's family and fans, who remembered him as one of the toughest quarterbacks in NFL history. The condominium was a secret location where McNair conducted his affair. His wife found out through the news. Robert Rozier. Robert Rozier played briefly as a defensive end for the St. Louis Cardinals in 1979, appearing in just 6 games. But his football career was nothing compared to his criminal life. After leaving the NFL, Rozier joined a black supremacist cult called the Brotherhood. The group believed in eliminating white people to hasten a racial apocalypse. Between 1984 and 1986, Rozier participated in multiple murders in Florida as part of the cult's activities. He personally killed or helped kill 7 people in random attacks targeting white victims. In 1986, Rozier was arrested and charged with 4 murders. Facing the death penalty, he cooperated with authorities and testified against cult leader Yahweh Ben Yahweh. His testimony helped secure convictions. In exchange, Rozier pleaded guilty to 1 count of second-degree murder and received a 22-year sentence. He was released after serving just 10 years because of his cooperation. After release, Rozier entered witness protection and changed his name to Robert Ramesses, but he couldn't stay out of trouble. In 1999, he was arrested for check fraud. In 2003, California's 3 strikes law triggered a new sentence of 25 years to life. He's currently incarcerated at Mule Creek State Prison in California. On January 28, 2025, he was denied parole. His next hearing is scheduled for January 2028. The other victims' families never got justice. Fred Lane. July 6, 2000. Carolina Panthers running back Fred Lane was shot and killed in his home in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was 24 years old. His wife, Deidre Lane, called 911 claiming an intruder had broken in and shot her husband. But police investigation quickly revealed inconsistencies in her story. There were no signs of forced entry, nothing was stolen, and Deidre's behavior seemed off to investigators. Detectives interrogated her for hours. Eventually, she changed her story. She admitted she had shot Fred herself during an argument, but she claimed it was self-defense, saying Fred had been abusive. The FBI analyzed the crime scene and ballistic evidence. The trajectory of the bullet and lack of defensive wounds on Deidre contradicted her self-defense claim. In 2003, Deidre Lane was charged with second-degree murder. At trial, Prosecutors argued she killed Fred in cold blood during a heated argument about their failing marriage and his infidelity. The defense maintained it was self-defense. The jury didn't buy it. Deidre Lane was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to 7 years in prison. She was released on March 3, 2009, after serving nearly 6 years. Fred Lane's NFL career had shown promise before his tragic death. The case highlighted the dangers of domestic violence and showed that athletes can be victims too. She walked free after just 6 years. Tommy Kane. Tommy Kane was a wide receiver who played for the Seattle Seahawks starting in 1988. Things got off to a rough start when he was sentenced to community service for assault that same year. Then before the 1993 season, injuries led to his departure from the NFL. But Kane's violent tendencies only escalated after football ended. On November 30, 2003, nearly a decade after his career ended, Kane got into an argument with his wife, Tammy Baker. The argument turned physical in his mother's home in Montreal. Kane stabbed Tammy to death. He was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The trial revealed a history of domestic violence in the marriage. However, a psychiatrist testified that Kane was in a cocaine-induced psychosis at the time of the murder. This changed everything. Kane pleaded guilty to manslaughter instead of second-degree murder. In 2004, he was sentenced to 18 years in prison. In 2018, Kane was granted parole, but his freedom was short-lived. He was returned to prison just a year later in May 2019 for violating his release conditions. He has remained in and out of the system since. The case highlighted how substance abuse and mental health issues intersect with domestic violence. For some, the shadows of the past are impossible to outrun.